session for November 25th, 2014 to order. If everyone could please either turn off their cell phones or silence them and join us in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Niece. There can't be deletions, I know.
There is, meeting minutes, we have to delete.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got one of each.
Well, if we had
For a nice
anything else,
long
then we
agenda.
wouldn't have a meeting.
Okay, so our airport review committee, we need to do some action consideration on members, and then we're deleting meeting minutes.
And we're deleting just the meeting.
Just a minute.
Yeah. And as far as the airport advisory group, given that Commissioner Kessler isn't here, I would still like to see us just have a little bit of discussion. Okay, our first item is a timed item, Debbie Utley, prevention update, EFC grant. Welcome. Sorry, I swallowed something wrong.
I think you both have met Eric Larson.
Yes.
And I'll just open up and start by, you've heard me say that Eric kind of is my replacement. I'm actually really retiring like any day, either like tomorrow, or I might have to be back in December. I know some of you will understand how wonderful the federal government is. They give you a grant and they end the funding, but then 90 days after that, they have like quite a few reports that are due. So Ben had said, I will make sure there's funding so you can do those reports. And one is an electronic report that they haven't given us access to yet.
Well, first, thank you for
Yes.
working. Congratulations on your retirement. Enjoy. I hope you get to travel. I know you'd like to. Good for you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Well,
I didn't
and-
realize it was that, you said tomorrow.
Well, that was the original goal, and Eric's looking at videos and trying to figure out how any of you that have ever done any government computer reports that take days and weeks to do, it's not an easy learn. I think people think stuff's much easier to learn the curve and then figure out how to put the data in and what to save for consistency. So he's gonna attempt to do it. I've got a file with all the answers and copies, but even the copy that I printed at the end of doing the report doesn't look like what they do to you when you're entering it. It's like you say yes and all of a sudden this whole stuff opens up, and so that's why, that's the only thing holding it up. Everything else is ready to go.
So you'll come back as needed to help with
Yeah,
the-
and I have vacation time, and I am gonna go down and hook up with some family stuff for the holidays, and then probably around the 11th or 12th, I'll be back and say, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And depending upon a conversation with Eric, Ben, or I, it'll either be that I get the rest of the vacation paid out, or I go in and do, a couple of days of it. Because we only have to enter data for August and September, but it literally goes on and on and on and on and on, the questions.
Mhm.
And this is one of the data updates. We only get our
Anytime
data.
federal dollars are attached, there's plenty of work to leverage those.
So, but, and I will kind of summarize and say that when you look at some of the information, and I'll go through it, don't hesitate to ask me anything as we're going. But I do feel pretty good that when you look at the data that's attached, that we've done really good improvements. But I hate to say it, you all three of you county commissioners have been extremely supportive on the, the marijuana effort that's been going on. But when I tell people, and
Can you clarify that, Debbie?
Well, with the
No,
election.
Yeah,
with the election of Oregon passing recreational marijuana, it's not a freight train coming down the road, it's like a tornado, because the general public doesn't understand that there are no guidelines in that measure that tell you how you can figure out if someone's under the influence. So all of our workforce people are gonna have to deal with the legalities and the liability efforts. They're gonna have to deal with the lawsuits that if it's any indicator, when we had, I'm jumping around and I don't mean to, but I
Well-
have the drug-free workplace. We brought in the gentleman we'd had in 2009 from Serenity Lane, who did a last drug-free workplace, and we've got a DVD on it, so we can lend it out, or people can buy one for $10, and they can watch it. He was the one saying, giving the example how in Arizona, They literally had the lawyers that were funded by the pro-marijuana people, and they threw out, you know, a DUI against a guy, and that kind of stuff is gonna occur.
Well, in talking to law enforcement and attorneys and a lot of people, this is a slippery slope, but I just wanted to clarify when you said the support of the Board of Commissioners at the election.
I'm sorry.
I don't usually tell how I voted, but I
No,
did
no, I
not
didn't,
vote
no, you
in
hadn't told me
favor of
that,
the
you
marijuana.
hadn't told me that, I meant your support of our efforts of
Okay.
doing the
I-
prevention, because, I mean, we even had, it got so nasty, and most people, again, don't know it, that of all the millions of dollars raised in the state of Oregon for that measure, the pro money, 4% of that came from within the state of Oregon. It's all a national effort, and they fund lawyers, and they go after people, and it's just very nasty. And we actually had the US congressman from the greater Portland area, Blumenthal, I think his name is.
Mhm.
He reported all the prevention people in the state of Oregon to the federal government, and said we were using federal money to lobby, because we were doing our education ads on marijuana. You know, I mean, it was ridiculous. You know, nowhere in anything anybody did did we talk about going out and voting, but we tell them the scientific facts based on science. And I remember working with the newspaper when we were putting our logo in and taking some other logos, they forgot some of the kind of where the research came from. And I said, no, 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 that's the other side that doesn't quote any research. We put in the research that shows them that it's from, you know, NIDA, and I apologize, I'm gonna use acronyms because I can never remember their names, but it's the National Institute of Health Authority or something. And I mean, we've got the science for 20 and 30 years that show the negativity. And I think everybody, you all have law enforcement report to you, so you understand DUIs and you understand, you know, what goes on with the influence of any mind-altering drug, and if people are driving, and, you know, the crime, and just, I mean, it goes on and on.
Well, when you mentioned Congressman Blumenthal,
Yeah.
he's not the only one. We had local people that
Oh, I'm
pushed
sure.
us about it.
Oh, I'm sure.
So.
And we did make sure that, you know, Ben went to Ken and we went to Ken and, you know, things like that, because we weren't lobbying, we were just showing science. And I appreciate it again. We were told that I was doing my job and that it wasn't an issue. And, you know, it was very difficult because we were trying to communicate with our drug-free community grant overseers. And the poor guy who oversaw Washington State, Alaska, and Oregon, he was called on the carpet, and they all were asking for proof of what we were all doing with our grants. But again, it was probably the forum, the education forum, they had 13 planned in the state of Oregon with Kevin Sabat, who is, you all remember when I gave you information on marijuana, he was the PhD scientist who used to be at the Office of National Drug Control Policy. And he was there the first term of the Obama administration, he was there during the Bush administration, and he was there during the Clinton administration. And a lot of them left that office after the first term of our current president. And I think it's because they knew they were gonna pull back a little and they didn't wanna be in those jobs, because they knew it would be difficult. You know, it's like our law enforcement, it's gonna be very difficult. They're gonna turn their eye on a lot of stuff that goes on because they don't want the prosecutions and the fights in court.
I believe you said quite a bit, and what it is Oregon went ahead and made it legal without knowing what the ramifications are. And I think it's going to become legal across our nation eventually. And I really wish that Oregon would have waited and found out some of the ramifications before they jumped on the bandwagon. I believe that some of our services are going to be inundated with a lot more. Our state may be inundated with people who want to move here just for the recreational use. And with that comes cost associated with it. I think it's going to be legal across our nation eventually, but it's not at the point where that I think it's as thought out as it needs to be right now.
And I know that Jerry Givaldi from Serenity Lane is one of the people, he was saying to our drug-free workforce people, you know, drug-free workplace, that he's on the committee, they're trying to get it, but they don't have the capability. You can do a breathalyzer for alcohol, but there's no such entity currently for law enforcement to do on the road, at the road site for marijuana. And it's a very complicated, scientific, it's got to do with absorption in the brain, and it's different the way it works than alcohol.
Well, I don't want to get
Yeah.
all the way, we can talk all day long, but this is a federal grant,
Right.
okay?
But marijuana was one of our targeted substances
The
from
feds,
education.
it's still illegal with the feds.
Correct.
It may be legal in the state of Oregon, so this is Fed dollars, which still should say this is an illegal drug.
Well, I know when I say this to you, because you
Right.
guys know how bad I am anyway, and I am getting ready to retire, so what the heck. But you all realize how political, you
No.
know, the federal government really is, and even our state government. And, you know, it's really too bad that, I mean, it's just really too bad.
Well, that's one of the things that's gonna be really hard, is
Yeah.
you get a federal grant
That's right.
that is looking at, this is an illegal drug,
Mhm.
but the state of Oregon says it's legal.
And again,
So
we
how do
weren't
you-
lobbying. We all sign that when we do anything with the federal government, that we won't lobby, just like government employees do. But there's a difference between education and giving people facts so that, and you know that most of our effort, it's when I start going over things, we work with the youth because we want them making healthy choices. And you can't make healthy choices in a vacuum. You've got to know the facts.
Well, I would think that if Eric comes on and with Ben, is that you would ask for that definition from the federal side on this grant.
Well, it's
Is
over.
it's, you know, what does this really mean? Well,
And we'll still ask them things, but our funding, and our SE 70 funding is a state federal block grant. So I mean, it literally was all of our money. Some of the counties had private money and they still continued to do some of the forums that they did for educating people. But they had 13 scheduled, and because of that, 7 communities had to pull out because they had federal funds that were gonna pick it up for an education forum.
a lot of monies that come through the state for the color fed behind them,
That's exactly it.
especially
Yeah.
in,
And our funds in this county, what we get, it is all federal government dollars.
so anyways, let's
Yeah.
go on with your
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah. Well, you know, in our past efforts, you've heard us talk over the years about, you know, we still have always supported and will continue to support the Community Coalition UPIC, you know, United Prevention Intervention Coalition. We still try to get people recruited into it for community participation. We still have participation from all over the county, all kinds of agencies. We have the recovery community involved, we have our youth involved in it. We still have our prevention groups in all of our middle schools. Eric this fall started the 9th year of those. And not having the dollars that we've had in the past, he can't literally drive to North Lake and to Paisley every single month during the school year, but he's going up periodically, and he also works with the kids and texts them, not just emails them as Debbie would do if your kids don't read. But he works with them, and there's kids in the group that have gone to trainings with us so that they're enthusiastic and still want to continue the effort. We will continue, and Eric will still continue doing prevention talks, like Commissioner Kestner said. He heard us at Rotary. We didn't get to see you as soon as we would have liked. We would have liked to have filled you in first, but we did it slightly different format. But we did talk to Rotary, and we did talk to Seroptimus, and Eric will work on Lions, and he'll work on maybe touching base in Paisley with the Lions or the Lionesses, and maybe in Silver Lake, just so community members know stuff if there's an interest. You know, we'll continue, we still do, and we will continue to work with all the school districts, whether it's both the administration and working with them, and athletic directors and health teachers and coaches. And also, we work with them, they allow us to give them letters, and they put them in and send them out, like whether it's a pre-prom thing that they send to the senior and junior parents, or whether it's graduation and we do a letter to the senior parents, or it's summer or spring break or something like that, and they put stuff up on the website where the parents can think about, you know, if there's a vacation and they're both working parents, maybe they can partner with another parent of their child, and maybe they get 2 or 3 days that they do something, because idle time is not real good for substance abuse prevention from parents. We also have continued to work with, some of the schools actually have parent groups, and we've worked with them when it's been North Lake or on the Union School. We work with those parents. And we will continue, not just with parents to do the letters and information like that, but do you remember seeing any of our parent corner ads that we used to do? We'd give the parents, we'd run ads with little suggestions on how they might address a certain thing. Could be a certain subject, and it could have been pre-prom, or, you know, we would reinforce it both the letter home and that. We'll still be doing editorials and things like that. All of the newspapers have been willing to work with us because we gave them some good advertising dollars over the years. We had that money. So we'll continue doing that. We also did do that drug-free workplace presentation. I thought it had only been 3 years before that we'd done it. It's been like 5. And we did produce a DVD. And we did have some good turnout for that, but they can watch it, and instead of it being a 2-hour presentation between the PowerPoint that is included in the envelope and the DVD, they can probably go through it in a half hour. And it's just enough to give them to talk to their their legal counsel and or their HR person, because as a supervisor, it just gives them ideas on how to proceed forward. You know, we've still continued our relationship with law enforcement, whether it was, you know, our sheriff's office or the town, or even the sheriff's office had worked with both the BLM and the Forest Service, so party patrols and things like that, and our law enforcement still does the best that they can do. You know, in the beginning, we did help fund the SROs, which went away quite a while ago.
I just marked down
Yeah.
state police.
The state police, the sheriff's department, and the Lakeview Police Department, they all work together, as well as the BLM and the Forest Service law
I
enforcement.
just seen, you never wrote down state police on there.
I'm sorry, that was a sheer omission.
Okay.
And quite
No, I just-
honestly, they had, Phil was the one that would coordinate that, and they have like a, and I don't wanna say it's a monthly
So it's all law enforcement
meeting. Yeah.
agencies.
I don't wanna promise it's a monthly meeting, but it's a regular meeting where they talk about those types of things.
Good.
You know, in the past, not just our drug-free community grant, because this is all of prevention, not just the drug-free community grant, but, you know, the suicide prevention, the sustainability of all of our efforts, we try to come up with ways to sustain it. And we did get, that was probably the smallest grant I ever worked with, but it was a very effective grant. They gave us like $11,500 a year, but we were able to buy curriculum for the schools, and we were able to help the school counselors, the hospital. We were able to send people so that they had people in a 2-day training. We did not just a curriculum for their high school health classes on suicide prevention. We worked with them on directories and things so that they'd have their administrative tools to work with. They also did in-service programs for their schools, and they update the new teachers of that and continue it. But then we were able to target specific people. Like I said, the school counselors, all of them at the time went to it. Of course, we've had some personnel changes in some of the other schools, like in North Lake, but we sent them to a 2-day assist
So,
training.
you know, I'm sort of a numbers person.
Yeah.
So there was a certain amount through the DFC that went to law enforcement,
Yes,
and
and I thought you might ask me that, and I
Oh.
apologize, I didn't give that to you, but I can get that for you.
will we, you no longer will be receiving the DFC grant?
Correct, it's
So-
done, you can only do 10 years,
So
and we did them.
our sheriff's department, town police, and others that receive funding,
We'll no
when
longer
we
have
go,
that one.
when we go into our budget time this year, we'll be looking at that.
You'll
Not
probably
yet.
hear about it. I actually would have thought you might have heard about it this year, only because the DFC only went from, of this budget, current budget, went from July 1st to September 29th. There was no monies after September 29th. And our law enforcement did receive, between our DFC grant, the original UDL grant that was with us when I came to work here, the STOP grant that we've had, and the second cycle of the DFC grant, law enforcement got $535,000 from our grant. I mean, we didn't just help them a little, we helped them a lot,
Absolutely.
you know? And it wasn't just law enforcement that got some of those efforts, the schools got a huge, you know, we don't have the money anymore to bring in speakers. And I think you probably all might have heard me talking, or someone in the community talking, when we brought, the last guy that we brought in once before. He's a drug and alcohol trained treatment person, very knowledgeable. The Loma Linda Hospital outside of San Francisco, it's right, not San Francisco, LA, it's right off the I-5 and the I-15. And they get tons of the trauma. He was the one that they had to see before the hospital would release them if they'd come in with an accident and they had any substances in them. If they'd come into the hospital or the ER at all and they had any substance in them, he had to release them, not a medical doctor. But his background is he was a former stand-up comic, and a very successful one, like in LA and the big cities. So the kids loved him and they listened to everything he said. And he was very entertaining. He went right in. And I won't say it because we're on public meetings, but he talked to the boys about certain functions that don't work if they're gonna use marijuana, and then he talked to the girls.
You just said it.
Well, he's funny, but he's funny. And then he'd say to the girls, you know, that, you know, if you get alcohol poisoning, you, well, I think I said it appropriately, didn't I?
Yeah, you still
Like,
said
couldn't I
it.
not be banned on television, or bleeped?
So I was gonna have you speak up and turn and face the camera.
Okay.
You were speaking up, so.
Yeah, But then when he would talk about alcohol, he'd talk about how it's poison to the body, and if you take too much of it in, or as you're a young person and you're not fully developed in your brain and your body, you can't handle it, and how you basically pee, and then you puke, and then you pass out, and then you go to the girls, yeah, that's the homecoming date you want, isn't that like an attractive date, And I mean, he would really get the kids going, and he had been there 2 years before, because the school and everybody, even teachers raved to, the school counselors, how great they were, and the first time we got him off of another visit up to Medford, Grants Pass in that area, and we could only get him to Lakeview. So the second time, we could get him ourselves, and we tried to coordinate all the schools. Paisley did not get to see him, but literally, the kids would ask him and call him out on stuff he didn't bring up, and they'd say, what about? And they'd bring something up he'd mentioned like 2 years before, and it was just amazing to me. And then after our prevention group kids got to go to a conference with him, some of them, and we were done, and I said, what was the most impressive thing, or what did you remember, or what did you like the best? And in addition to meeting all the kids from elsewhere who do the same thing they do, that they care about not having drugs being active in their school, they would name like some scientific thing, like that there were 435, whatever the number is, of the chemicals in marijuana, and you'd be thinking, wow, they remembered that? Because, sometimes talking to teens and hoping they hear anything you say isn't always the most significant results.
Not a way for them to latch on to.
Oh, they love him, and they listened to every word he said, and they would bring it back up if he didn't bring it up 2 years later, because he was doing the newer information 2 years later. But so we brought a lot of good programs in, and quite honestly, over the 9 years, I list some of them in the thing for you, whether it was the 3-screen loud music with the fast moving that the kids liked from the MAD program, like 8 or 9 years ago, to bringing in, his name is Ray Lozano, or bringing in some of the other programs. We brought in the University of Nevada out of Reno, and we brought in their drug prevention people, and I had met their head of security in a Boise alcohol and drug conference, and their district attorney from assistant district attorney from Washoe County, and they were saying that this woman is young enough that the students at the University of Reno won't talk to the law enforcement people, but they like her, and she's, quote, hot enough, kind of like that youth magnet stuff, that they would invite her to their dorms and have talks in the whole dorm with her and stuff. So she brought up herself and a student that was a young man that was still in college. So our kids liked them because, they weren't quite as old as me. So, we tried to bring in people we could afford, but they were also very knowledgeable. So, the schools benefited from that also. I will tell you that probably my proudest moments that I've been pleased with that what we've done is that we've had those volunteer prevention groups for the 9+ years, going on 9 years. I'm really thrilled that we were able to help bring the Lake County Youth Mentor Program. You probably all remember when Judy Stewart was helping me when I first got the second cycle. She's the one who wrote that grant. And, like I remember saying to people, it was Molly Wiseman and myself that really pushed it for Lake County. And between them, when we were interviewing, I do remember it was a tight 2-2 vote for 2 different people, and I only said I knew the other person. I don't know their skills, but I know Kathy Miles, and I don't know about you, but I don't want to be running this program. And Kathy's done a marvelous job, has gotten very additional, all the funding that she needs for what they need to do right now. Not that there couldn't be more funding, there could always be more funding, but they're doing a very good job for the program. And then probably the last thing that I would have to say I worked the hardest, or as hard as I did on anything. It's called the Good Behavior Game, and I realize I just put the initial in, the GBG. The Good Behavior Game was an evidence-based program. It took me 4.5 years to put the money together, and Ronnie Lindsay helped me with CC&F and some money we had in prevention to bring them in. And all North Lake and Lakeview attended it, and the Head Start down here. And I have to admit, the North Lake School is thrilled with it. And unfortunately, the only one in Lakeview who really has used it to the degree that she had was Deb Watts. And Deb told me at the end of last school year that she had the worst class she'd ever had in her 30-year career.
Wow. And
she said, Debbie, if it wasn't for the Good Behavior Game strategy, she said, I don't think I would have lasted the year. And she said, the kids had turned her class around. And it's a simple strategy. The kids think they're playing a game, because they get rewards for good behavior. But what the kids are learning to do is self-monitor themselves, which unfortunately a lot of kids aren't doing these days compared to when we grew up. You didn't get close to my age, but when we grew up, we would have gotten reprimanded, our parents would have killed us, not, yeah.
I thought he was older than you.
Well, no, he's not. He and I know that, that's kind of an inside joke.
Oh, okay.
But I've known him long enough that he's actually starting to age. But it.
Gracefully.
Very gracefully, if I may say
He's a
so.
gray wolf.
But I did list some of the
I
things
am
that.
wild and free.
I did list some of the things the
Yeah.
good behavior game does, and it's just, I mean, it's incredible what they reduce and what they increase, and, those are probably the three proudest things that, you know, I've done through the, not I've done, we've done through the, prevention program, and we
So
work
that
really
is
hard.
called the,
It's called the Good Behavior Game, and somebody you know very well has been my staunch supporter in the Lakeview School getting it implemented. And again, I think it's because she comes from a background of treatment that we understand it not only helps with drug and substance abuse use, even the ADHD kids and the ADD kids, even if they're not on medication, it helps them.
well, I continue to hear from some of the teachers of the way that they are treated in the classroom from students. And our teachers are the backbone of our community.
Of our youth.
And our youth, and some of them get to a point where they're about ready to take on a different profession because of the school rooms are
Yep.
pretty tough nowadays.
Well, and the other thing is the good behavior game really does, at the end of a month, they end up picking an extra day, because you hear the school personnel talk all the time, how the state and the feds are piling stuff on that they have to do. The kids, it takes them longer to get their attention back. And this strategy, this game, really, really makes a big difference. And it's unfortunate that I think they're so inundated, they aren't open to new ideas. And I know Ronnie was very disappointed because Paisley didn't participate, and she was very disappointed. And, you know, I understand, we all understand.
What age groups is this?
It was supposed to be K through third, and because we had some numbers that were low and one school district didn't participate, we ended up expanding it. And then it was after the fact, there were a couple of postponements, and after the fact, Brandy and Lonnie told me, they didn't want to tell me the day of, but about 3 weeks later, they told me that some of the teachers got pulled out, and, you know, I was very disappointed. But I'm very thrilled that Tammy White, the vice principal in North Lake, the elementary school principal, loves it, is trying to find extra funds to bring it back for more coaching with it. And I know
You would
Brandy
have thought
Harris.
you would have thought I would have heard about it before now.
Well, I know, I'm sure she's busy. Brandy Harris is very passionate about it and thought it was terrific. And, you know, I was disappointed that more people hadn't implemented it, but what Deb Watts shared with me impressed me, and, you know, I was pleased. And I figure you can't help all of the situations, but if I get North Lake and I get Deb and have Brandy, maybe they can bring it back again. And maybe some of the teachers, you know, maybe some of the other teachers in the buildings have heard what Deb has talked about, and I know she's got this whole school year this year. Because last year, by the time we changed dates, it wasn't until February we were able to bring the trainers in from Arizona. But this was founded like in 1967 by an elementary school teacher in the Midwest somewhere. And I mean, it's not a curriculum, it's not a, you know, but it's phenomenal
I was
reports.
young enough, I would have qualified for that in my class.
That's right, probably.
You might have been past that.
It was actually developed because of.
Probably because of Brad,
I
something,
I
and it
stepped
had
over
him
the
here in
door.
Lake County or
Yeah.
something, yeah, probably.
It might have been just for my.
Yes.
Well, and the last thing that you have is the data.
Mhm.
And as I say, we've got really good improvements. That helps me feel a little bit better about my time that I'm leaving. And I didn't target it to leave, because it isn't until July 1st that the legalized recreational marijuana is gonna hit Oregon. But you will notice the only places that the figures haven't improved really well are the perception of risk under marijuana and the perception of parental disapproval. You know, when I go out, when Eric and I talk to the kids, the young kids, and you guys hear me say it enough that it's really true that I don't really know who those kids are in those classrooms, and even if I did, I've probably forgotten their name. But I can tell every child in the school who lives in a household where the parent either had medical marijuana or the parents used marijuana. I mean, you can absolutely tell it because you hear the comments. And you know, the comedian I was talking about and the treatment guy, he's the one who talks about the kids, yeah, marijuana's natural and lettuce is natural. If I go to Wendy's and I have a salad and I leave, can I drive my car and not be impaired? And the kids, of course, these are high school kids and junior high school kids, and they're all going, yeah, no problem. And then he goes, well, suppose I go to Wendy's and I don't go in, and I go behind the dumpster and I have a little green marijuana. He says, can I get out of there and go in the car and not be affected? The kids are all going, no, and he's going, that's right. He says, so they're not really both equal, they're not really natural, you know? And so he goes to all the points. He does it humorously, but it sticks with the kids. And you know, that is unfortunately the difference that I've seen. Even with all that going on, we've still reduced the use, and the age of initial use, the short term is they call it age of onset, when somebody starts using underage drinking or marijuana. You know, we were able to increase those ages, well, actually, underage drinking in 8th grade, we didn't increase it, but we did do not so well with marijuana on that.
You know, if you look at the past 30 days, alcohol,
Yeah.
marijuana,
Yep.
the 40 and 55%.
Yep,
And then you go down to marijuana, the 4 and 14%.
yep.
Be real interesting in 5 years from now, after marijuana is legal, to
Yeah.
see how high those marijuana numbers jump.
Well, and the unfortunate thing is, we see stuff, and we have 2 people that give us, one is a legal person and one gives us all the update on Oregon. But the state that really shared all the facts has been Colorado, and that governor, he did not want it passed. He shared all the data, and he's the one who's been quoted nationally a lot, saying that he wishes other states would wait and see how the Colorado petri dish turns out before you decide anything.
That's
You know,
taken with her.
yeah, and because, yeah, they've had so many horrendous, you know, and especially to do with the edibles. You know, and it's not just the young little kids that, you know, are picking up the gummy bears or whatever, but I forget, who was it, said to us that, somebody here has grandchildren in Washington, and that young man he's in college, but he doesn't live in the dorm. And the roommate went home for whatever holiday and said, oh yeah, you know, help yourself to anything in the refrigerator. And the guy looked in, there was a candy bar. He was thinking it was a normal candy bar. He ate the whole candy bar. Well, the problem is that the edible marijuana, whether it's a cookie or whether it's a candy bar, it's not a dose. It's like 4 or 6 or 8 dosage. So, and he was doing something, and he was still in his apartment, and he could tell something was wrong. And he called 911 for himself. But, you know, it's, unfortunately, you'll get to hear and see more and more, and you'll start to see it in this state, unfortunately.
Well, Debbie, I think the shortest version that I could share with you on your near retirement is your commitment and your passion is unsurpassed. Like, we really do appreciate all that you've done.
It is kind of depressing some days, but
Yeah.
you keep trying, you know, you can only try to make as big a difference as you can.
Well, thank you very much.
And you guys, every time you see, you know, that spouse of mine, just say to them, so have you guys left yet? It would be a little helpful, but I know he comes to the courthouse every day.
And Eric, welcome again. I know we got to meet with you at budget time for a little bit, saw you around.
Yeah, the good thing is with the DFC grant, I said to him, and you won't have to do this budget, it's Pete Den who does this, you know. So, and, you know, there's a little bit of me that also, sometimes you do feel the frustration that you try to make progress and you do a foot forward and 2 back. And I've said to both Ben and to Eric, there might not be anything wrong for a little while. We don't know of grant opportunities out there. We've kind of exhausted. We've done very well at getting all of them, but now we don't know of any. But I said to both of them, there's nothing wrong with Eric being the resource now. And when people call, say, yeah, you could bring this person in or that. We unfortunately don't have the money to help you. You're gonna have to fund it. We did find out that Ray, the stand-up comedian treatment guy, has a national contract with the Elks organization. And so we figured in about 2 years, we'll try to hit up the Elks and see if they'll spring for the $500 that they would have to pick up. And then any put-up charges that maybe we could help, or the school would or something, see if we can't bring them in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
But it doesn't hurt to be the resource, and maybe they'll be a little hungrier for some of the support. Because sometimes it was like battling down doors to get a foot in. Thank you, though, again, for your support of our efforts to do prevention. You all have been very supportive of my time.
Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day. Okay, we have Tom and Dave and Darwin here. Larry?
Well, good to see you, Doug.
Thought Bob Squires was gonna be here today.
No, I told you yesterday he canceled
Oh, he
and is gonna
Yeah.
reschedule.
He's gonna restart. Thanks, Larry. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the airport advisory board committee.
What would you like to hear?
Well, maybe just for the record, last week in the planning commission meeting, a potential project that was being proposed by Obsidian Renewables was deferred until, at this point in time, January. The January meeting, in part, the discussion as I understand it, was that several of the committee members didn't feel as though the advisory board had weighed in as to the use of that particular piece of land. And we probably don't need to go through the thises and that's on that, but we do have in front of us a 2010 version of the advisory board for some discussion. Unfortunately, Commissioner Kestner's not here as one of the members of that representing the commissioners, but we don't have Tom on there, and it's appropriate that Tom's on there as our airport manager, so.
So what we have currently is Ken Kestner, Bert Young is airport manager, which should be replaced by our airport manager we have now. Ray Sims, town manager, Melissa Webbins, and Alan Matthews. It's my understanding that Alan Matthews resigned, is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I was told. I talked to Lisa yesterday because she's been the one, with Jules being over in Eagle Point, she's been the one that's heading up everybody. She said, her, Bert, and Jules were the only ones that were still active on the list. So, that's kind of where that's set. And I did communicate with Jules when he was here. I talked with him about this whole process, and I did talk with Bruce, Lisa's husband, and communicated with them about what was going on out there. So it wasn't that, we didn't have an official meeting because we didn't have a whole group together. Nobody's really pulled that together since I've been over here, so.
Well, truly, the committee objective is right here in writing. This committee will meet as often as necessary for a 5-month period. The focus will be to review the existing airport operation and facility. The long-term goal is to develop a written 20-year airport use strategy and update the existing airport master plan. We've accepted the new master plan. It is done. The objectives of this group has pretty much been fulfilled, and that's the reason why it is sort of went back into the shadows.
Right.
So the planning commission, for some reason, probably doesn't realize what the scope of the airport advisory group was, but they made a decision. Right or wrong, they made a decision. So what I need to know is what exactly does the planning commission want? Not a broad paint of it. What is it that they need to make a decision on land use, not on?
So they wanted this group to meet and come up with a recommendation and at least an opinion on if the solar project proposed out at the, at the site, at the airport, was appropriate use, according to their opinion. But, that meeting, and we don't need to get into too much detail about the planning commission meeting because it may come to appeal on, to you guys, which at this point, no one has standing to appeal it because no criteria's been addressed, but, it was, the master plan for the airport was addressed and quoted specifically, and it wasn't, still, the motion was to postpone it until this group had met to discuss, the proposal, the land use proposal for solar at the airport. So, and I hadn't seen this list before, it kind of caught me off guard big time that they wanted this airport committee to meet. Looking at the list of folks that are on this, everyone had been notified of this meeting that's on this list. Or at least the group that they represented at the time that they were appointed to this list. And, Matthews being, with Rhoda at the time, with Rhoda as a leasee out at the airport was notified. Webbins are leasees out there as well, they were notified, the town was notified, Bert, as a planning commission member was notified, and then Tom, obviously, as current airport manager, and Ken knew about it, as just a commissioner. So, our bases were covered for, noticing, but still the planning commission kind of wanted to go further than what was probably their role. However, they can ask for more input, that's what they chose to do. But I would still like to see, if this committee even, is maybe even dissolved. I mean, we're discussing it now.
Well, that's, I think,
Well, I think it's easy enough, Darwin. They've requested this. I would say that today, we appoint Tom as airport manager, which is a position held. Continue with Commissioner Kestner, Ray Sims, Lissa Webbins. That would leave an open position, Alan Matthews, because we've been told that he's resigned. But I would recommend that those four, Ken Kestner, Tom Andrews, Ray Sims, and Lissa Webbins, meet as soon as possible. They're all aware of this, have the discussion, and get it to you, and for you to expedite the planning commission meeting as soon as you have that information. Do you need that in motion, George?
well, yeah, but maybe before you put it in a motion, I think that the paragraph at the end is key, and I think this needs to be rewritten, dated at current date. And I think we need to simply state that they've been reconvened off of the 2010 committee to simply do that. And then it is sunsetted again until there is a further need where they no longer are an official advisory board.
For also your information, you may remember this too, is that during the master plan update, there was a separate committee set up, which was called the PAC, which was the Planning Advisory Committee, and that included as many as, there's 12 members on that committee, it looks like, and so they met during the update of the master plan. This is just kind of a list of those names, and Jules was on that list as well.
That's a committee put together by you and the planning.
Yeah, that was,
department
yeah,
has
so that's
advisory.
separate, but I wasn't sure if there was, misunderstanding that night, because again, I didn't have either of these before me, but I just wanted to, I'll make sure that the planning commission is clear on the direction of what you
Yeah,
guys.
well, and I think with what Commissioner Winter said, with the caveat to the new list and Tom's involvement along with Ray and Commissioner Kessler and Lessa, we can get that committee to look
Yeah,
at the
we can go through
current
that.
long-term plan that's already been discussed, decided, signed off on, and get a recommendation.
Darwin, I don't want to muddy the waters with the other advisory group. That was for the master plan, for the planning side of it.
Mhm.
It wasn't for the decision of the land use and for the lease option that the commissioners agreed to. So that one's not even an option to discuss, actually. This is the airport advisory group that the commissioners put together to bring information to us. And so that is where I'm at.
Well, and just to honor the discussion with them, the work, the responsibility, the ask for has already been done, but we will go back and ask again
Ask again, yeah.
and move forward. So that motion that you made,
So the motion would be for the airport advisory committee to be Ken Kestner, Bert Young, or not Bert Young, he's replaced by Tom Anders. Tom is our airport manager, Ray Sims, Lissa Webbin. And I'm thinking, I'll hold off on my motion. I wanna have discussion beforehand. That fifth place, why wouldn't that be Dave Berman, our lands and property person?
Yeah, given
I like that.
the way things have evolved, I think that's appropriate.
Okay, so go back to my motion. The motion for Airport Review Committee will be Ken Kestner, Tom Anders, Ray Sims, Lissa Webben, and Dave Berman, with their focus to look at the request that's come forward from the Planning Commission.
I'll second it. It's been moved and seconded to approve the appointment for the Airport Review Committee of Commissioner Ken Kestner, Tom Andrews, Ray Sims, Town Manager, Lisa Webben, and Dave Berman, Property and Lands Manager, Lake County, for the purpose so stated. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Whenever you guys meet, would you please keep it specific to the one thing the Planning Commission is asking?
Yeah.
And if there's other airport things, the advisory group things they need to be a part of, bring it to us and we'll make a decision.
Yes.
I have a question for Darwin. If we get this together next week, because I know Alyssa's available next week, so I just need to get a hold of Ray. Is there any opportunity before January?
I'm
Hold this through?
hoping, yeah, I'm gonna talk to legal about that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm hoping to throw the December meeting still together, there's no other application for it, and that's good news, or good information for you
Well, and
guys.
I would
about
think
that.
depending upon the outcome of the advisory or the Airport Review Committee's recommendation, it can be so stated in a very small, short letter to the Planning Commission that the group has met, they have made a recommendation regardless of what it is. They're still gonna have that plan application before then, and the sooner that we deal with it,
So
one
since
way
it
or
was,
the other.
yeah, so since it was tabled, I just need to get clarification how we'll just have, the motion be reconsidered and then
Yeah.
resend it to, address that land use question right then. So hopefully in the December meeting, we'll get that.
Great.
Okay. A decision on that. Yeah,
Okay.
plan for
Since
any
we've
of it
got-
Wednesday.
Any other Wednesday? Okay.
Any department updates from any of the departments?
Which one of you were going to get a hold of Lissa and let them?
I'll do it. I've already talked to her yesterday, so I'll
Okay.
just continue on.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Appreciate it.
I'll have one.
Okay.
Real quick, for planning, AOC was great, it was good to go to the annual planning directors conference. I also dropped in on the land sale group, the Oregon Property Managers Association I'm with as well. We'll hopefully get Dave in there as well, since a lot of the stuff that he does is, relates to that, as you remember, Bob kind of covered it all and then just split it up, so it'll be good that Dave will come. There'll be a spring conference that is usually held in Bend, we'll be able to make it too. The main thing I wanted to bring up was, you guys have heard me discuss the model code, the technical assistance grant that we weren't awarded, but then the state ran to do a model code zoning ordinance for, regarding the exclusive farm use zones, which is our A1 and A2 zones, and then forest zones as well, so the resource zones. So the state awarded that grant to Angelo, Angela, and they will be doing 6 counties. And what they have asked, they being Rob Halliburton with the LCD, has asked is that we get a letter of support from the Board of Commissioners and probably the Planning Commission, so I'll bring that up in December as well, but that if we're one of the 6 counties, that they will help through the whole process, that we can assure them that we will hold all the meetings necessary, have the public comment received to adopt by July 1st of this year, the model code
So Darwin, do you know all the elements that need to be in that letter?
Yeah, it's gonna be real simple.
So you-
Yeah, and
you'll
I will
draft
get
up
you
a
one
letter.
prepared,
Okay.
so, whichever meeting in December, we can have that, and I'll have something for the planning commission prepared too, so.
Okay.
But I'm this is a good thing. I mean, it really will be for, you know, our county, for all the counties in the state that are smaller, that are, you know, limited resources in their planning staff to stay up to date with current, state zoning laws and rules. So, as we move forward, you know, you'll definitely be aware of what will be going on, but, there'll be a few public meetings that we'll hold, and, again, we're looking at, adopting just the non-discretionary items. So what is state law that we have to enforce, those are the things that we'd be looking to put into this model code. Now, that was the original intent of the grant that I had submitted. It's what the LCD through the contractor is looking at as well as discretionary items, and looking at possible language to adopt that would work as a part of a model. There's many reservations I have with that. You know, it goes above and beyond, and it's just not the scope that we need to be looking at this time. I mean, we can maybe use it, but certainly not adopt it, you know, so it might be good for example purposes during certain situations, but, you know, if it's not required by law, we shouldn't be adopting it, and especially if it's definitions which now say it's this, and it might be a little bit different, you know, because of the application that we received.
Thank you for that, because our development in Lake County is a little bit different than the development in the Portland metro area.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so,
Yeah,
what will be adopted then is what's mandated by the state of Oregon,
Yeah.
period. We don't have
Yeah.
no further say other than to lobby for change if there's something that we don't agree with.
And part of the reason why, you know, I wanted to stay focused on just the non-discretionary items is that, you know, because of state law, those things we can look to adopt, you know, without there being an appeal process, because the state, it's already state law, so there's no opportunity for appeal. But if you get into the, you know, discretionary items, it's not state law, so then it can be, if you're gonna try to implement this, then, you know, there's a whole different requirement, notice requirements and, you know, possible appeal, which then just further delays the process. And, you know, I mean, I don't know how much public involvement we get during this whole updating process, but it's just something we didn't need to get into. So,
Okay.
Lastly, sage grouse is still moving forward. We're looking at possible language to adopt. We've had a briefing by John Jennings a couple weeks ago now, but we did meet Friday morning as well. All the stakeholders were there, representatives from the governor's office and state reps, Cliff Vance was there, and others. So I'm hopeful that it's gonna get to a good path that we can accept, that doesn't necessarily add more requirements for land use or you know, restrictions on the current land uses that are available out there. But I know, and it's been said to us multiple times, you know, every meeting that US Fish, before they determine if they're gonna list this, you know, sage grouse or not, needs to see more from wording in each of the states that has sage grouse habitat. But one of the things I know Commissioner Kestner is you know, kind of the lead commissioner on this topic, and you know, he's been great at going all the meetings he can. He truly believes that we do have all the elements already in the state law, but also in the county's codes that will you know, give the necessary review and you know, set up the necessary criteria if large-scale development, which isn't yet fully defined, but on the state level and federal level.
Well, Darwin, I'm sorry cutting you off, but I'm concerned about quite a bit of it. And it sounds like that it's getting down to the time that they're trying to say, we gotta get something in place. And to settle for putting something in place that isn't correct, I'm totally opposed to. The maps are wrong. There's no definition of large-scale development. If we settle because we're trying to make it time frame, we are not doing it just. And you know, I haven't been the commissioner involved, but I will not support something that isn't the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
individually. I do believe that Harney and Lake County, maybe Mount here, all commissioners ought to have a meeting, the debriefing together, so that we all hear the same thing and sort of work together if that's possible. But I do feel like that the state is pushing, we have to get this in place, get this time frame in, or else we're gonna list it.
Yeah,
Well,
If we set policy, if we set direction and everything, and then you can't operate to it, you can't manage the land to it, that's worse than if there's nothing at all.
Well, Judge Grasty yesterday called me and we visited about the meeting on Friday, and, you know, I think we need, he speaks highly, Darwin, of your work on this throughout the last several months. But I think we need, as Commissioner Winters alluded to, more involvement from the Lake County Board of Commissioners, and I think Judge Grasty totally agrees to the extent of his frustration sometimes, because a lot of things are deferred to him and he wants to have us weighing in. So I think that is appropriate, and we talked about the 3% rule that Richard Whitman was talking about, and many other things, including large-scale development. Is that a price tag? Is that an actual footprint? You know, all those types of things. So I think hopefully we'll be able to arrange that multi-county get-together. And one aside, and I don't know that you really got to meet him, you may have, Joe Stutler from Deschutes County attended that meeting, big tall drink of water. He's very interested in helping not to go down the path of the cohesive strategy, but that's what it's for. And Steve and I got an email this morning from him. I talked to Joe on the way home last night again, because he's very intrigued about the application and the opportunity to use that in this multi-county look-see. And so I think there'll be more come out of that, because Judge Grassley really wants to hear more from Joe and how we can facilitate a better understanding of what needs to happen in each of our counties, so.
We could meet Central Lake in Wagon Tire, that's in Harney County.
Yeah, we could help put up their sign to welcome the veterans in Harney County.
They actually have that up
Yeah, I know. Jab them,
there.
so.
So,
Okay.
yeah, we're still working on it,
I
and I
think-
agree absolutely.
I think we're there, Darwin, or that, I don't know how we pull that meeting together of, might be 4 counties, might be Deschutes County also, maybe.
Well, I think they'll be a participant just
Yeah.
because of Joe.
And-
in a
and-
small area.
You know, if somebody could put together a very well thought out agenda so we stay on task and have a moderator to keep us there and have those 4 counties together.
And I think that's what Joe's volunteering more or less to be, because he is the co-chair of the Western Region and implementation group of the cohesive strategy. So I think that's what's gonna come out.
We're there, and I do thank you for the time you've
Yes.
put on
Yeah.
sagebrush.
Yeah.
It's very time consuming.
Well, and it's extremely frustrating, knowing full well that the maps are so wrong, and that the baseline's wrong. One of the things I brought up, and I don't wanna take up too much more time, but this is just kind of a diagram of the population of the bird from, you know, counts that, you know, there's probably a lot of error within those counts, you know, I mean,
Well,
birds there today, but
the-
wasn't there yesterday, so I.
The sad thing is that right now, while we're at this, we're in the worst drought we've had for decades.
Right.
Which I believe maybe even the biologists would recognize that the drought's gonna have an impact on the population numbers.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know,
Well, we gotta get it away from, everything points back to people are the reason that we're having declines in this particular population.
They acknowledge that the 2 highest, you know, threats are fire and invasives. You know, weeds, but also juniper encroachment, things like that, so. And then a distant
You know,
third, they
disagree,
say,
but on the
yeah,
juniper.
we talked about that, but so the distant third is land use, you know, large scale development, but you know, this population, you know, diagram,
To
and this
the,
goes
to the
from
population numbers, Darrell?
1980, huh?
To the population?
Yeah, to the population of the bird. The reason why they list, they gave a whole list of uses that,
Yeah, I
or
would
threats.
suggest land use is way down the
It's
list.
way down the list, and, but yet it seems like it's the full discussion. I mean, that's what I mean, there's supposedly these other groups that are meeting about fire
Well,
and invasive.
politically, they don't wanna deal with the other issues like the
Yeah.
predators and those
Yeah,
types of
exactly.
things.
You ever played dodgeball? There's some people it's easy to take out real soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You
that's,
move all those
Yeah.
junipers and only have one place for the raptors to be, and they don't have to fly around any junipers.
Yeah.
That dodgeball game gets real easy. You're gonna lose a lot of those sage grouse. So I'm not really 100% on with getting rid of every juniper. It might be,
well, other wildlife species that doing anything with the cover, i.e. juniper, is totally objected to.
yeah, it's not considered. But yeah, I would think that an eagle or a hawk or a falcon, especially with a straight flight pattern, as dumb as sage grouse are, it's like, and they don't taste like chicken. They're not even close. So
We
anyway,
had for lunch the other day at the conference.
So last thought, I shared this with, I shared this last thought with a few people there and, you know, kind of more after the meeting, but the science says that at 3% disturbance in these polygons, these imaginary circles, that were drawn because, you know, there's a lek here, which is the breeding location, and then they draw a 3-mile buffer. Then the local implementation teams, kind of adjusted those maps way back in 2011, and they need to be looked at again, and that's one of the major things Judge Crafty brought up with me on Friday. But the science says that at 3% disturbance, then the population, they're seeing a downward trend. Well, but then they throw in the land use and say that large-scale development is messing up the population, and then the planners did this 10-year report from 2003 to 13, and it showed that there was no land use really going on, especially large-scale. But yet they say that there's this amount of disturbance and the population has been going down because of the disturbance. Well, my argument is that, you know, if you look back at the table of the population and how it's been trending up and down since 1980 above their 30,000 goal range, that in my opinion, and I haven't done yet the study, but it wouldn't take long to figure out that at least in Lake County, you know, and our population's been doing this, just as every other county's been doing, that there's been no large-scale development in any of our polygons. So therefore, this 3% that they're saying they're trying to establish a baseline, areas like Picture Rock, right? So just north of Summer Lake, there's supposedly this core habitat area, and it's got 1.75 disturbance supposedly. But you know, how much has happened in the last since land use say in '73? And my argument would be that nothing. So if the population's been going up and down, there's no reason to say that there's actually 1.75 disturbance. It should be at 0. And then any new development that is looked at, then you know there may be mitigation or avoidance
or maybe,
no net loss or
maybe
whatever
we
you want
should
to get
take
to.
places that are the lax of core habitat that's on private or BLM land, which that land generally is of very little value. The sage grouse is like this and everything. Maybe the state ought to trade some more productive lands to the cattlemen and let the state own those leks and let the cattlemen have a higher use area for grazing than just trade land. And then we can manage them out of existence with fish and wildlife.
One of the other last, I guess there was one last thing. So I call it our triangle, between 395, Christmas Valley Highway, and then 31, right? So that middle pocket, it's all BLM, no development other than, you know, maybe a transmission line or two and old dirt road. So that area is not habitat supposedly, you know, and you know, we questioned I think it was just ODF&W one time about why is that not core habitat or at least low density, and parts of it are, the edges are, but the majority of the middle is not. And you know, and it's because they haven't done counts out there. There's not a lot of, you know, good access. And, you know, if you're out there all day.
Well,
And
then we advertise that nationwide
As an
to
area.
have that
Yeah.
developed.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, that was again,
I'm sorry.
Judge Grassley kind of gave 4 bullets, and that was one of the other 4 bullets that he said that we really need to be looking at, because if it needs to be that we develop some water, maybe some solar thing that's low to the ground that's not gonna get a raptor, something perched on it, brother, then maybe we can develop the water enough that the birds are gonna come back to it. Because there are ancient leks there, ancient being maybe
At the end of the day, what we want is a good management of our resource for multiple use, multiple animals, multiple reasons, not manage it for one species at the expense of every other species, including the human equation. And we gotta get back to that. We gotta get back to what's the right thing to do for multiple use.
So thanks, guys.
Thank you. Dave, you got anything you wanna share today?
Well, I do. Well, the airport, for one, just so you know, on the 9th, Daryl Owens and I forwarded you the email, but you were here this morning. You're gonna be here on the 9th to do the final walkthrough. Daryl Newton from the ODOT come to do the finalization walkthrough of the Connect 4 project. So that'll be on the 9th. I'm gonna meet with him out there, and like I said, Tom, I haven't got to tell you yet, so.
Good.
Does that work for you?
That works for me, yeah.
And then today we finalized the dump truck scenario on the donation, or the with rotor between the
Fuel
Lake
truck,
County.
yeah.
We
Got
got
dump
that.
truck?
Excuse me.
Fuel truck.
Fuel truck, see,
Okay.
I'm just
I
still.
thought you guys were out for it. You want some more? All right, dump trucks now.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Gonna start a growing road crew. Bring a call.
So we got that wrapped up, and then, as far as the airport, do you have anything on the airport? Any update?
Well, we did do, we've actually got one more improvement that we weren't expecting out of our Connect 5 federal grant. The feds came in 3 years ago, I guess, and did a survey for the new PAPI lights, which are a precision approach, that were gonna be part of our Connect 5 program. After finding out that the feds have already done the survey work, we had WH Pacific look into why we were funding that. And the feds came back yesterday and said, don't fund that. We've got that taken care of, we'll do it in the next 2 years. So instead of that, we're gonna get the new rotating beacon and the new tower out there for the beacon. So that way, we'll have one more improvement coming through those dollars.
So do you have to amend the Connect Oregon 5 to be able to change
I
that?
asked WH Pacific and they said they checked and there's not enough of a change to make an amendment there. Because they said it's just going from one lighting system to another, but it's all still within that.
Good,
program.
just document that because of Connect Oregon and the state,
Yeah.
people come and go, and
Yeah, okay.
it's really.
So, I've got it in an email, but I'll shoot the email, but I'll talk to them and have them confirm that too.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
make sure Dave's got a copy of that.
Great.
Yeah.
And the Connect 4, after that walkthrough, we'll get the 3% they hold back.
Yep.
That one will be closed out. That's very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, excited to see the next process rolling along anyhow.
That is, yeah, that's great.
I was just out there yesterday, actually, and the place looks very nice. Quite impressive where we're at today, where we were just 2 years ago.
You have no more questions available.
Just a comment then.
Okay.
So, Donald Patch Parker, he did resign due to medical reasons, so, we are currently advertising for positions 1 and 2, which, Meredith Smith currently holds position 1, Burt Young currently holds position 2 on the planning commission. Patch's position was position 5, I think, which is the North Lake, and so is Meredith's. Since we are currently advertising for those positions, I only have so far 1 application, which is Meredith's. I will be looking to see if we could get enough, applicants, or I may call some of the past applicants. And try to get, we need to get those positions filled.
And it would be good if we know how it is filling these positions, but it'd be good if we can get someone
Absolutely.
in that direction.
And there may be a realignment that I'm looking at.
There's somebody that's experts until a position comes up, and then they
Yeah.
apply. We need to, I'm sure the planning commission put a letter together for patch.
Yes.
We need to, how many years, 20?
So it was almost, I wanna say 34 or something.
Okay, so it's over
It's
30.
been a lot, yeah.
So Denise, would you put together a letter from the board of commissioners of our appreciation of the commitment that patch has made to the planning commission and to the communities of Lake County?
Sure.
Something to that.
Yeah, they did say that. And we still have one on there to take care of too.
Yeah, but we need to have one from the board of commissioners also. It's a long time.
So Denise.
I went to AOC, sat in on some good conversations with, administrative people, and also with my administrative staff or commissioners. Learned a lot. We did take some ethics as well, which is always good to get brushed up on, so. Blah, blah, blah. We go on and on, but
So are you gonna make a, more of a formal presentation, because I won't put you on the spot today, Denise. I know you did get a chance to talk to Mike Smith from Sherman County on broadband type opportunities here in the county. And it'd be great to hear from you on
Okay.
whatever degree you want to at some
okay, at
future.
some point, okay.
Oh,
No, it was a great discussion, and I was very happy that I knew exactly what he was talking about, so.
yeah, she came out of the meeting with him.
Oh, no.
Like, I was in some meeting, and she was meeting with Mike, and, because I had met with him the day before, I was clueless and reminded him of that I knew someone that would not be as clueless. And she came out of her meeting and was very much smiling. Just
Well, and
had a
the
good
funny part about it
conversation.
is, I'll give you the basic rundown on what we talked about. They just took, like, the ubiquities that we put in the courthouse,
Mhm.
they just started making those accessible to their residents. They're $150 to purchase, there's no monthly fee on them. They get to keep it if they decide they don't want the service anymore. They only had one internet provider, they just worked with their internet provider. They don't handle any of the billings or any of that kind of stuff, install or any of that, they don't do that through the county. They just gave that avenue to their, network providers or internet providers, and were able to do it just with ubiquities. They had enough towers, and, because they don't use a lot of power, they don't use a lot of feed, and took it totally out of the ground so that they didn't need a fiber line anymore,
Yeah,
so,
no, it sounded.
yeah, it was
Bits
good.
and- Bits and pieces.
and simple, it's simple.
Well, that's, I'm really glad you took advantage of the opportunity to visit with
I
them.
appreciate you setting that up for me. That was-
Well, it was who's? Uh-oh. It's the police department, no. This is a doctor. He's the-
Even better,
Yeah,
yeah.
your defibrillator's going off.
They're sending the ambulance now.
Do you have a heart?
No. That's what they got the defibrillator in there.
We took it out a couple weeks ago.
Jarvik 7 or whatever it was?
Yeah.
Where we at on our vehicles, everything's been purchased at this point?
Everything's been purchased, one of the pickups, both pickups are getting their equipment on, one is done, one is being finished up, and as soon as it's done, we'll bring those both here and
And
repurpose the ones that are,
our pull rigs are up and
everything's good.
everything's good?
Yeah, the new Explorer for pool has been used just a few times, not a lot of times. I'm trying to keep it for only out of town, John's longer distance, use the state for shorter distance. But yeah, it's going good.
And the reason why I bring that up is, like I say, thanks, because of over some years it's taken quite a while to get the vehicles purchased. We're not even halfway through, they're purchased, they're in place, they're being used. That's much better than it to be at the end of the budget year, so thank you.
For sure. You bet. You're welcome.
Liaison updates.
Oh, yeah, the ever famous liaison updates. I guess one of the things close to me with a lot of passion is that most people seen the email I sent out to Planning Quackenbush yesterday, with my disappointment of their closure of Front Park and Goose Lake without taking into consideration the public meeting and input from the board of commissioners and our constituents. This morning, just before this meeting, Sheila, I can't remember her last name, and Amanda, the Department of State Lands on the grazing side of it, stopped in and hand-delivered the maps and notice. And so they got to hear from me of my disappointment, how that we hear about it after it's already been in the Klamath paper. They are out posting signs today. I think that with the lack of them working with the community, I think that's a waste of effort and waste of money.
Commissioner, can I ask you, when you talk to because they are the delivery people of the message.
Right.
And I know you treated them very well in the discussion you were having, but didn't we have a state police lieutenant set, and when I asked the question about posting a larger size sign to reinforce the need to respect the laws related to the reason for the closure, suggests to us that signage doesn't work?
Absolutely.
And now they're going to sign that it's closed to everyone?
It's very interesting. If you look at the maps, it goes beyond the dry lake beds. That's what we talked about, the dry lake beds. Now it goes to the swamplands and the swamp act and all these things. And it's intertwined with federal land, private land, and state land. So literally, these are secondary roads, but they're two-track roads out there. You can be driving to federal land, cross state land, which now is criminal trespass by their definition, or other penalties. So you can be going to federal land, which is public land, and not know it, and cross the state lane there on a road, and you could get a criminal trespass. Well, they tell me, well, yes, the law enforcement has quite a bit of discretion, so they probably wouldn't give a ticket. They also have a lot of discretion the other way, to make an example out of somebody. And if you have your guns in your gun rack, you could be criminally trespassing with firearms. Their discretion could be as high as a felony. And so it's just a wide swath. And my email pointed out on the Goose Lake side of it is snowmobiling and the recreation that goes on there. And no consideration at all. So Goose Lake is completely closed. But I wonder if they're going to post across the middle of it on the state line. I think that they really ought to spend their money posting there, because the California side, I don't know if it's closed or not. But anyways, I'm being quite facetious. I'm very disappointed. I encourage anybody to get a hold of our state rep, state senators, and let them know that I'm very disappointed in not working with us here.
Well, and I think part and parcel, just to interrupt you for a minute, I really appreciated your email to Elaine, and you saw I did reply to
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
And I think you're exactly right. I don't think we've heard the end of it. I think just a short spin-off of that, Jimmy Hall from our Lake County Examiner is writing an article, or wrote an article. And hopefully that'll resonate, because your point about the closure and all of the uses and the public who typically, the majority went out for those other uses. My comment was, we're using a sledgehammer to do finished work by doing what they're doing, and it is just wrong. Absolutely, on every level, it is wrong. I appreciate the concern they have with those few who do things that are against the law. But that's what we ought to be dealing with, and we talked about it in my meeting with them. We totally lost the focus, so I really appreciate your email, because you touched on all of that.
Yeah, well, I could have made it a much longer email, it's plenty long as it is.
That was a good email, good points.
Yeah, so I worked on that when my liaison updates. At AOC, the Transportation Committee, which was an action item, was to look at the possible distribution of gas and registration tax, if there was new taxers, and that's totally up to the legislature. I'm not promoting for or against a new tax at this time, but if there was a new tax, a gas tax, and there's a component on gas and registration also. But it'd be, the new dollars would be distributed to the counties, 33